I didn't expect the night to begin with her voice. It started earlier, with the title already forming in my head before I understood why. My girlfriend fell asleep. Like that was the hinge everything else swung on. We'd driven up late, a long day stitched together by road noise and cheap coffee, and by the time we reached the small roadside hotel, exhaustion had settled into the room like dust. The heater clicked. The lamp hummed. She curled toward the wall and was gone in minutes. I lay there listening to the hallway breathe. The hotel wasn't romantic. It smelled faintly of detergent and old carpet, the kind of place you book because it's on the way and nothing more. Downstairs, the ice machine coughed every few minutes. I stared at the ceiling fan's shadow, turning, and tried to match my breathing to the rhythm of someone else's sleep. That's when I heard the door open softly. Her sister stood there like she'd been there the whole time. Mid-40s, hair pulled back in a loose knot that looked accidental, but probably wasn't. She wore a cardigan over a plain shirt, jeans that had seen better days. Confident without trying. Like someone who knew how to take up space without making a sound. "You're still awake," she said, barely above the hum of the heater. Then, after a beat, "So am I." It didn't feel like a question, more like an acknowledgement. We'd met before, of course. Family dinners, quick hellos, the polite choreography of people orbiting the same center. She worked at a repair shop in town, electronics, mostly, had hands that looked capable, nails short and clean. Earlier that evening, she'd fixed my phone in under 5 minutes, sliding it back across the counter with a small smile that said this was easy. I'd thanked her too many times. She'd waved it off. Now she leaned against the doorframe, eyes adjusting to the low light, and I realized I'd never really looked at her before. Not like this. Not noticing how she waited before speaking, how she seemed to listen even when the room was quiet. "Couldn't sleep," she said. "The walls are thin." I nodded, as if that explained the tightness in my chest. As if it explained why I sat up slowly, careful not to disturb the steady rise and fall beside me. She stepped in just far enough to close the door behind her. The click was soft, final. We stood there, the space between us filled with things neither of us said. I noticed the way she held her mug. Tea. Maybe. Both hands wrapped around it like it was warmer than it needed to be. "You want to sit?" I asked, then immediately wished I hadn't filled the silence. She smiled, a small curve of her mouth that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Just for a minute." We sat on the edge of the bed, careful, like two people sharing a secret they hadn't agreed to keep yet. Our knees didn't touch, but I was aware of the space where they might. She asked about the drive. I answered too fast. She told me about the shop, how business slowed in winter, how she liked the quiet hours when she could work without interruptions. I listened, really listened, the way you do when you sense something important is being offered, even if you don't know what it is yet. At one point, she reached over to adjust the lamp, her fingers brushing mine by accident. The contact was brief, almost nothing, but it lingered, like a word you repeat in your head to make sure you heard it right. She didn't pull away immediately. Neither did I. "Sorry," she said, though it didn't sound like an apology. "It's okay," I said, though I wasn't sure what I meant. From the other side of the bed, my girlfriend shifted, sighed, settled again. The room seemed to hold its breath. Her sister stood, smoothing her cardigan, and for a moment I thought she might say something else. Instead, she looked at me, really looked at me, and nodded once, like we'd reached an understanding neither of us could explain. As she opened the door, she paused. "Good night," she whispered. I watched the door close, listened to her footsteps fade down the hall, and lay back against the pillow, staring at the ceiling fan's shadow again. Only now it felt different, like something had tilted, and I couldn't stop thinking about the way her fingers had brushed mine, or how that one quiet minute had already begun to rearrange everything I thought I knew. Morning light leaked through the shop windows in thin, dusty lines, cutting across workbenches cluttered with half-open radios and cracked screens. I'd offered to help without thinking, said it casually, like it didn't matter, but she looked at me for a second longer than necessary before nodding. "Sure," she said, "if you don't mind holding things steady." I didn't. She worked with a quiet focus that made the room feel smaller. Sleeves rolled up, hair still pulled back, a faint crease between her brows like she'd been carrying it since before breakfast. I stood close enough to pass tools, close enough to notice how her hands paused sometimes, not from uncertainty, but from fatigue. The kind you don't talk about because it's been there too long. We didn't say much at first. The shop hummed. Somewhere, a radio played an old song, low and tinny. I watched her fingers move with practiced precision, the way she exhaled when something finally clicked into place. "You're good at this," I said. She shrugged without looking up. "You get used to fixing things when they stop working." It sounded like a joke, but it landed heavier than that. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I held the casing while she tightened a screw, our hands almost touching again. Almost. There was something guarded about her today. Not cold, just measured. Like she'd put something back in a box and taped it shut. When she laughed, it came late, like she was checking whether it was allowed. When she caught me watching, she didn't smile. She just raised an eyebrow, amused and tired at the same time. "You always this quiet?" she asked. "Only when I'm paying attention." That got a real laugh out of her. Brief. Surprised. It faded quickly, but I saw the way her shoulders dropped a fraction, like she'd forgotten they were tense. We took a break near noon. She poured coffee from a pot that had clearly been reheated more than once. It tasted burnt. We drank it anyway, standing by the counter, not facing each other. "I didn't sleep much," she said, out of nowhere. I looked at her then. Really looked. The faint shadows under her eyes. The way she leaned back against the counter, like she needed the support. She didn't explain, didn't look at me when she said it. "Me neither," I said, and meant more than the night before. She nodded, slow. For a moment, it felt like we were standing on the edge of something neither of us had named. Her fingers traced the rim of her mug, back and forth, back and forth. "This is complicated," she said finally, softer than before. I waited. She didn't finish the sentence. The bell over the shop door jingled then, someone else coming in, and the moment folded in on itself. She straightened, professional again, the distance back where it belonged. As she moved past me, she hesitated, just for a second, her hand brushing my arm. Not accidental this time. "Thanks for the help," she said. I watched her walk away, the space she left behind feeling louder than the machines, and realized I didn't know when the line had started pulling me in, but I knew I'd already stepped closer than I meant to. The third night ran late without anyone saying it would. She'd closed the shop early because the weather had turned, rain starting and stopping, the sky bruised and heavy. I stayed to help clean up, mostly because neither of us suggested I leave. We worked in parallel, quiet again, the way people do when they're comfortable enough not to fill every gap. By the time we finished, the rain had settled into something steady. Not dramatic, just persistent. The kind that makes you reconsider going anywhere. She locked the door and stood there with the keys in her hand, not putting them away yet. The lights were still on inside. The shop felt different at night, smaller, softer, stripped of its purpose. "You can wait it out," she said. "If you want." I nodded. "Yeah." We sat at the small table in the back, the one she used for paperwork. She poured tea this time. Chamomile. I noticed her hands again, how they wrapped around the mug, how one thumb kept rubbing the same spot on the ceramic, over and over. "Your girlfriend called earlier," she said, casual, too casual. "Asked if you were here." I kept my face neutral. "What did you say?" "That you were helping." "Which you were." A pause. She sounded tired. "So do you," I said before I could stop myself. She smiled, but it didn't stick. "Everyone's tired," she said. "Some people are just better at pretending they're not." The rain tapped against the window. A truck passed outside, water hissing under its tires. For a moment, it felt like we were the only two people left in town. She leaned back in her chair, exhaled. "I don't usually let things get blurry," she said, eyes on the ceiling now. "I like things clear, defined." I waited. Let the silence do its thing. "It's easier that way," she added, quieter. "Less damage." I thought about the way she'd brushed my arm earlier that day, about the way she'd looked at me when she thought I wasn't paying attention. "Sometimes things blur anyway," I said, "even if you don't want them to." Her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at the screen and stiffened. I didn't see the name, but I saw the reaction, The way her jaw tightened, the way she didn't pick it up right away. "Sorry," she said. "It's someone I should probably answer." She stepped away, took the call near the door. Her voice dropped, words clipped, controlled. I didn't listen, but I caught fragments. A sigh, a long pause. "Not tonight," she said at one point. "I can't." When she came back, she looked smaller somehow, tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded automatically, then stopped herself. "I don't know," she said, honest. That's the problem. The power flickered then, just for a second, but it was enough to pull us closer without thinking. She reached out, fingers catching my wrist. Not tight, just there. We stayed like that, the contact grounding and electric at the same time. Her thumb moved once, a small, unconscious stroke. She looked at my hand like she'd just realized it was hers to let go of, or not. I leaned in, just enough to feel her breath change. And then she pulled her hand back, stood up too quickly. "You should probably go," she said, voice steady again. I did. But I stood there for a second longer than necessary, my hand still warm where hers had been, knowing exactly how close we'd come, and how easily one more second could have undone everything. The silence started before either of us noticed it. We were back at the shop after hours again, no reason that held up under inspection. The lights were dimmed this time, only the desk lamp on, throwing a small island of brightness across scattered receipts and a half-finished repair. Outside, the street was empty, too quiet, like the world had stepped back to see what we'd do. She didn't offer me tea. I didn't ask. We stood on opposite sides of the counter, not working, not leaving. I could feel the shift in her even before she spoke, shoulders set, chin lifted, like she'd decided something and was bracing for the cost. "This can't keep happening," she said. Not angry, not gentle either, just true. I nodded once. My mouth felt dry. "I know." She watched me for a long moment, eyes searching my face like she might find something there she could use to make sense of things. When she didn't, she exhaled through her nose, a short, tired sound. "Do you?" she asked. "Because I don't think you do." I leaned my hands on the counter, palms flat, grounding myself. "Then tell me." She hesitated. Looked down. Her fingers fidgeted with the edge of a receipt, folding it, smoothing it, folding it again. When she finally looked back up, there was something stripped bare in her expression. No confidence, no distance. Just a woman who'd run out of places to put what she was carrying. "What are we doing?" she asked. The question hung there, heavier than it should have been. I didn't answer right away. I thought about the easy lies. Nothing. Just helping. It's harmless. They all felt ridiculous now. "I don't know," I said finally. "But it doesn't feel like nothing." Her jaw tightened. She nodded. Once, like that hurt, but confirmed something she already suspected. "I've spent a long time building a life that doesn't surprise me," she said quietly. "That doesn't ask for more than I can give." And now, she trailed off, shook her head. Now I'm standing here wondering when that stopped being enough. I took a step closer, then stopped myself. The space between us felt intentional, necessary. "I don't want to be a problem," I said. She let out a soft laugh at that. No humor in it at all. "You're not," she said. "That's the worst part." We stood there, close enough that I could see the faint line between her brows, the one that deepened when she was tired. Close enough to notice her breathing was uneven. She didn't look away. Neither did I. "This isn't fair," she said. "To you. To her. To me." "I know." Another silence. Longer this time. The kind that presses on your ears. She reached out like she was going to touch my arm, then stopped halfway, her hand hovering there, suspended. Slowly, she let it fall back to her side. "I should have shut this down sooner," she said. Something in her voice cracked, not loudly, just enough. And without thinking, without planning, I said the thing I'd been holding back since the hotel, since the brush of fingers, since the moment everything tilted. "I think about you even when I'm trying not to." The room went very still. She swallowed, eyes shining now, and whispered, almost to herself, "That's what scares me." I found the photo by accident. She'd stepped into the back room to take a call, work-related, I think, and told me to grab a folder from the filing cabinet. The drawers stuck. Everything in that shop had a little resistance to it, like it needed to be convinced. The folder wasn't where she said it would be. I pulled the next drawer open instead, and that's when it slid out. Old, creased at the corners, face down like it didn't want to be seen. I should have put it back. I didn't. It was a photo of her, younger but unmistakably her, sitting on the hood of a car with a man beside her. He had his arms slung around her shoulders, easy, familiar. They were laughing at same thing outside the frame. Not posed. Not careful. The kind of laugh you don't practice. Something in my chest shifted. Not jealousy exactly. Something quieter. He looked calm, like someone who knew where he belonged. She came back before I could decide what to do. Stopped short when she saw what I was holding. "Oh," she said. "Just that." "I'm sorry," I said quickly. It fell out. "I didn't mean to." "It's fine," she said, though she didn't reach for it yet. She took a breath, then another. "You can put it on the table." I did. She stared at it for a long moment without touching it, like it might bite. "That was a long time ago," she said. I waited. "He died," she added, still not looking at me. The word landed heavy, dull. Not dramatic. Just final. "I didn't know," I said. "Most people don't." She picked up the photo now, thumb brushing the edge. "We were supposed to open the shop together. That was the plan. Then one night, he didn't come home." Her voice stayed even, but her hand shook once. She noticed, closed her fingers around the photo. "I rebuilt everything after that," she continued. "Different city, different life. I told myself I didn't want what we'd planned anymore." A small pause. I got very good at believing that. I swallowed. The room felt smaller again. "Why are you telling me this?" She looked at me then. Really looked at me. There was no distance left to hide behind. "Because you keep looking at me like you expect something," she said. "And I don't know what to do with that." "I don't expect anything," I said, instinctive. She shook her head. "You don't mean to. But you remind me of who I was before everything narrowed." She laughed softly, then stopped. "That's not fair to you." Something clicked into place then. Not relief. Not resolution. Just understanding, sharp and quiet. "I'm not him," I said. "I know," she said immediately. "Too fast." "I know that." We stood there, the photo between us like a third presence. She slid it back into the drawer carefully, like returning something fragile to its place. "I don't want to repeat my life," she said, "or rewrite it using someone else." "I wouldn't let you," I said, surprised by how sure I sounded. She met my eyes, held them. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then she said, very softly, "That's what scares me too." Nothing dramatic happened after that. No door slammed. No rules were broken in some obvious, irreversible way. Life kept moving in its small, ordinary motions. Customers coming in, invoices stacking up, my girlfriend calling to ask what time I'd be home. The world didn't care that something inside us had shifted. What changed was the air between us. We stopped pretending we didn't know what we were doing. One evening, after closing, she didn't tell me to leave. She just sat on the stool behind the counter, shoulders slumped, eyes unfocused. I stayed on the other side, leaning back against a workbench, waiting for her to say something or tell me not to be there. She did neither. "I don't think I can keep splitting myself like this," she said eventually. Not to me exactly. More like she was testing the words out loud. I nodded. "Me neither." She glanced up, surprised, then gave a small, tired smile. "You always answer like that," she said. "Like you've already made peace with things I'm still fighting." "I'm not at peace," I said. "I'm just here." That landed. I could tell by the way she inhaled slowly, like she was bracing herself against something internal. "I don't want to hurt anyone," she said. "I know. And I don't want to disappear again," she added, quieter. That one stayed with me. I didn't reach for her. I didn't step closer. I just stayed where I was, letting her have the space to finish the thought if she needed to. After a while, she stood and came around the counter, stopping a careful distance away. Close enough that I could smell the faint soap she used. Clean. Familiar. "I can't promise I'll be brave," she said. "Or clear. Or even right about this." "I'm not asking you to be," I said. She studied my face, searching for something. Pressure, expectation, urgency. Whatever she was looking for, she didn't find it. Her shoulders loosened a little. "That matters," she said. The silence that followed wasn't heavy this time. It felt earned. She sat down on the edge of the workbench beside me, leaving a few inches between us. Not accidental. Intentional. Her hand rested on the metal surface, fingers curled slightly, knuckles pale. After a minute, without looking at me, she let her hand slide closer. It stopped just short of mine. I didn't move. Another second passed. Then she closed the distance herself, her fingers brushing mine. Light, almost cautious. When I didn't pull away, she let her hand settle fully against mine, warm and steady. We didn't squeeze. Didn't intertwine. Just held there, like acknowledging something fragile without testing its strength yet. She leaned forward then, resting her forehead briefly against my shoulder. Not dramatic. Not desperate. Just tired. Stay, she murmured, not as a command, not as a plea. Just a fact. I stayed. Outside, a car passed. Somewhere, a phone buzzed and went unanswered. Inside the shop, we sat side by side, hands touching, breathing evening air that felt different than it had before. Not fixed, not resolved, just no longer pretending. I'm telling this from a little distance now, not because it stopped mattering, but because time softened the sharpest edges enough for me to look back without flinching. People like clean endings. Labels. Before and after lines they can point to and say, that's where it changed. This wasn't like that. There was no moment where everything clicked into place and stayed there. What we had didn't arrive loudly. It settled. What changed first was me. I stopped mistaking intensity for urgency. I learned how much restraint can say when you let it. Being seen, really seen, turned out to be quieter than I expected. Less about being chosen, more about being understood without having to perform for it. She changed too, though she'd never frame it that way. She didn't become fearless or suddenly decisive. What she did was smaller, braver. She stopped disappearing from her own life. She let herself want without immediately punishing herself for it. She learned that care doesn't always come with a cost attached. And love, if that's what you want to call it, changed shape entirely. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't the rush everyone talks about. It was showing up tired and still staying. It was choosing honesty even when it complicated things. It was sitting side by side in silence and realizing the silence didn't mean absence anymore. We hurt people. We were careful. We were slow. Some days we still are. There were conversations that didn't end neatly. Choices that took longer than they should have. Nights where nothing happened except understanding. And that turned out to be enough. I don't tell this story because it's perfect. I tell it because it was real. Because it taught me that love doesn't always announce itself as love. Sometimes it arrives as a question you can't ignore anymore. Sometimes it asks you to grow up quietly. When I think back to that first night, the hotel room, the whisper in the dark, it doesn't feel like the beginning of something forbidden. It feels like the beginning of something honest. Something that asked both of us to stop hiding. And maybe that's the point. Not every story is about what you take. Some are about what you finally stop running from. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?